Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to make this really fun little pumpkin window card. We're going to be using lots of products from Fawn today. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start out with the outside in stitched pumpkin die, and later on we'll be using some of those other dies as well. And for paper, we'll start off with the canned pumpkin paper from Fawn, and this is a 100-pound cardstock. So I'm going to go ahead and get my card ready. So this measures 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm going to score this at 4.25. So we'll have a standard A2 size card, which measures 4.25 by 5.5. So I'm just pressing out the fold on that. And now I'm going to position the pumpkin. I just want to make sure I leave enough room for the stem and the leaf on top. So I'm going to just kind of position that there down towards the bottom of this panel, and this will be a top folding card. And I'm going to tape that down with a little bit of purple tape. Now you do want to open up your card before you run it through your die cutting machine, and I'm running it through the Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. So now you can see I have that cute little pumpkin opening, and then I have that extra pumpkin left over for another card. So now I want to also die cut the leaf, the stem, and that little tendril for my pumpkin as well. And I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock because we're going to be coloring these in. You could certainly use some colored cardstock here as well if you prefer. So I've gone ahead and run those through my Sizzix Sidekick machine, and I'm just using my Tim Holtz pick tool just to poke those out of there. So now that I've got these little pieces cut, I'm going to set those aside for a second here while we work on our images. So we're going to be using all of these sets. This is the Fawn Cutie Pie set. I'm going to be using that apple and the sentiment, and it's got the coordinating dies. And then this set we're going to be using that little coffee cup, and this is the Virtual Friends set. And then from the Crazy Antics set, we're going to use the two little mice and that blanket. And then from this last set, which is the Jump for Joy set, we're going to be using those individual leaves, the pile of leaves, and I'm also going to grab that little rake as well. So I've placed some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock in my Misty stamp positioner, and I'll be stamping these using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I will off camera stamp some extra leaves, maybe quite a few of the leaves we'll be needing. And then I'm going to stamp one more of the little coffee cups as well. And to press this out, I'm just using a regular chalk eraser. So again, I'll stamp some extras, and then I'm going to run these through. I've placed the dies on top, and I'll run these through the Sizzix Sidekick machine. So off camera, I die cut the rest of these images. And for coloring today, we're going to be using the Distress markers from Tim Holtz. And I've got them all listed here at the top, and I've also got them listed down below for you as well, and on my blog also. And for blending, I'm going to be using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pen, and I find this does some really easy blending here. So you can mix and match your watercolor pens and markers. And I'm going to be, again, just kind of mixing all of those colors there to create some fun fall colored leaves. And I'll add some shadows here and there and just blend those out. So I am going to do that for all of those leaves, the extra leaves as well. So I finished coloring in all of the rest of the leaves off camera. Now let's do that larger leaf. And I wanted to show you the colors I used here, which are Twisted Citron, Mowed Lawn, and Mustard Seed. So I'm just going to lay down that mustard seed just kind of randomly all over there, then add the Twisted Citron, and then come in with that Mowed Lawn. And I'll just start blending this out, kind of from the center out towards the edges. Now later on, I'll be antiquing this just a little bit with some darker inks, but I'll show you that a little bit later. So don't be too fussy here. I'm going to do some more additional colors on this a little bit later. So again, I'm just kind of coming in from the center and pushing it out towards the edges. So now I'll set that aside and use Vintage Photo and Antique Linen to color in this little stem. And I'm just going to pull that darker color up from the base up towards the top. And then I'll do the pie with the same two colors there. Just adding some little shadows here. And then for the bottom of the pie here, I'll use a little bit of that hickory smoke. A little bit on either side and then pull in towards the center. It'll just give a little more dimension to that pie. So now I've got the rake. I'm going to use walnut stain, antique linen, and the hickory smoke again. And now for this little blanket, I'm going to be using Stormy Sky. And I'm just going to kind of follow the lines of the blanket here. And then I'll just kind of pull that color over, kind of from the right towards the left, just leaving kind of a light area on each of those little squares. And I did come back in and add another layer of that darker color. So I did that a couple of times until I got the shading just right. So again, here I'm just adding a little more of a shadow here, and I'll just pull that in. That'll leave a little highlight in each of those squares. Now let's go on to our little mice, and we'll be using spun sugar and walnut stain. I'm using the spun sugar on the cheeks and in the ears there, and then I'll use that walnut stain to do his body. And I'm just using that one color. I'm just going to add that darker area around the edges and then just kind of pull that in. And I'll do the other little mouse the same exact way. So now with fired brick, I'm going to color in my two little coffee mugs. And I'll place some ink on each side. I started off just on one side, then I'm going to place some ink on the opposite side, and I'll pull in towards the center, leaving that highlight going right down the middle of each of these mugs. And if you get too much ink here, just scribble it on your scrap paper. You don't want it to get too dark in the middle there. Now for the little tendril, I'm going to use that same fired brick color and just add some color to this really quickly. So now we have those all colored in. So let's go on to the Lawn Fawn Outside In Stitched Rectangle Stackables die. We're going to take that largest one, and we're going to be die cutting two of these out of the Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. So one of these will be for the inside panel on our card, and the other one we're going to create a little grassy border. So I'm using the Stitched Hillside Border dies from Lawn Fawn. And we're going to go ahead and just figure out exactly where we want this little border to appear through that little pumpkin window. So I'm just going to place that little blanket down just so I can figure out about where I need this to be. And I did play around with that a little bit just to make sure I have it lined up properly. I'm just going to move it down here just a little bit more. And then I can go ahead and run that panel through the die cutting machine. So that'll give us a stitch border with stitching all the way around. So you can see that'll sit right at the bottom there. I'm just checking it again just to make sure I have the right size here. So to color this in, I'm using Twisted Citron and the Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide ink pads, and I'm using one of my life-changing brushes to do my blending. So I'm going to add that Twisted Citron all over. And you can see I've placed this on my We Are Memory Keepers silicone mat. And that just keeps that ink pad from moving around too much. That silicone kind of holds that ink pad in place. So I'm going to go ahead and add that darker color and then blend that out. Now I've got my cloudy stencil from Fawn, and I'm going to go ahead and do the sky. I'm using that stormy sky, and I chose that because it matches that marker color that I used to color in that little blanket. So they're both done from the stormy sky. Just wanted to bring in a little bit more of that blue, that same blue color. So to do my cloudy stencil here, I like to place the ink kind of on the stencil first and then push it up over the top of the stencil there and just create some darker and lighter shadows here and there. And you do want to turn that stencil around. It's got 4 sides of different cloudy patterns. So just continue this pattern all the way down. Again, just kind of checking. I'm going to be checking here just to see how far I need that border to go. So I'm going to go pretty much all the way down to the bottom here. So now I'm taking my Fawn glue tube. I'm going to go ahead and glue down this grassy border. Just lining it up right at the bottom of that panel. And then I'll go ahead and glue that panel onto the inside of my card. And I'm just going to center that. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start in placing all of our little items inside the card here. I've got that little blanket. Again, I'm just checking that. I'm closing the card just to check and make sure that's lined up properly. And then I can go ahead and add all my other little pieces here. So we're just going to create this cute little scene with the 2 mice having their little coffee and some pie. So some little treats. I am going to make this a Thanksgiving card, but this could certainly be a card for anything else. Just a cute happy birthday card, or just a thank you or thinking of you card. Just a friendship card would actually be really cute as well. So now I'm going to continue placing these little pieces in here. Now for these little coffee mugs, that stamp set does include the little heat coming off the mug, so we're going to stamp those in a little bit later. So I'm adding the stem to the pumpkin. I'll add that little tendril coming off the top there. And then I'm going to pop up this leaf using some Scotch photo mounting tape. Again, we're going to be adding a little more color to this leaf in a minute here, and I'll show you that as well. And then I thought it would be cute to just have a little pile of leaves here on the front with the rake kind of leaning up there. So I went ahead and used some foam mounting tape and I popped that up. And then I'll grab this little leaf and pop that up as well. So now let's go ahead and add some of those extra leaves up in the sky here as though they're just kind of falling down. And I'll add some in the window here, and then I'll add some on the outer edges. I'm going to place a sentiment on the inside of the card in the upper right hand corner, so you do want to keep that in mind as you're placing your leaves down here. So now I've placed this back in my Misty stamp positioner, and I'm going to stamp the little heat coming off of those cups and off of that little pie. So I've gone back to the Cutie Pie set, and I'll do one of the cups first, and then I'll reposition that and do the other one. So again, I'm just using that same black ink that we used earlier, and I'll just quickly stamp that. You could certainly use just a little acrylic block here to do your stamping as well. So now going back to that same set, I'm going to stamp "Have a Happy Thanksgiving" up in the upper right hand corner here. So I'm just going to position these 2 stamps side by side to make one continuous sentiment here. I was just trying to decide how I wanted that to be. I was maybe going to stack them one on top of the other, but in the end I decided just to do one straight sentiment. Now, when I'm doing this, I like to double check to make sure that it's going to come out straight when I do my stamping, since all of my artwork is already done here. So I'm taking a piece of scrap paper, I'm just placing it in my MISTI. I'll ink this up and stamp it and just make sure that it looks nice and straight, just the way I want it to be. And once I like what I see, I'm going to go ahead and do my final stamping here. So now I wanted to add some more color to the outside of the card. I want to create some shadows. So I'm using the Distress Oxide Crackling Campfire. This is one of the newer colors and it's just so beautiful. And it's going to just give a little shadow here. So we'll have that canned pumpkin color from the paper. Then we'll have a little bit of a darker shadow with the crackling campfire. And I don't know if you can see that on camera, but in real life it's much easier to see. So now I'm using the walnut stain and I'm going to add even a little bit more shadow around the edges. So we'll kind of have that blending of color here. And this is going to draw your eye in towards the center of the card. Now here's where I'm just tapping off some excess and I'm just going to brush a little bit over the top of that leaf. Again, I just thought it was a little bright and I wanted to just give it a little bit more of an aged kind of a look. So now that we have that blended all the way around our card, I'm going to my Jelly Roll white gel pen and I'm going to add some highlights. And again, this will just make everything pop out a little bit more. Just adds a little more interest. And then I'll add some polka dots to this little mug. And for the other one, I'm going to add a few stripes. I'll add a little highlight to each of those little leaves. Now you all know I love my little Nuvo surface sweep brush, so I'm just kind of cleaning everything off here. Just running that over the top. It's a super soft brush. Just cleaning off anything that's left behind. And now with my Pink Fresh Essentials Jewel Mix, these are these beautiful sequins and you get all those colors in the set. And again, I will list all of these products down below for you. I'm going to add 3 of those little chocolate brown ones right on the center of my leaf here. I just thought I'd bring in a little bit of sparkle and add a little bit more dimension to that leaf. So let's take a closer look at today's card and that cute little window that we have. Take a look at some of the dies you might have to see what kind of shapes you can come up with for these windows. I know that Lawn Fawn also has a little apple shape as well. So all the products I used today are linked down below and also on my blog. And if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. Also, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. As always, thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.